Is test review number 3, and I'm working on problems 11, 12, and 13. And it's 11. Let's look at our order of operations, which is parentheses, exponent square root, multiplication, division, adding, subtraction. So problem 11, are there parentheses? Let's look at that first one. Yes, there are, so we do that first. Now, adding 1 plus 1/3 is simply 1 1/3. But let's change this to, so it'll be, let's make the whole number an improper fraction with a 3 in the denominator. It's because 3/3 equals 1, correct? And all that is taking a whole piece, we'll draw it down here, and chopping it into thirds. And you have a fraction that you can call 3/3, which is also saying it's equal to 1. So 3/3 plus 1/3 is then becomes 4/3, which is always good. That when we change that whole number, this is our first line up here, we created a second line changing that whole number to 3/3, and we can bring down the rest of this problem just for a way of keeping track of things. This is a smaller problem, so it's easier to keep track of. And if you don't do that, if you feel confident not doing it, then you don't have to. 7 halves. The last thing we have is division. So we follow our division rules to change the division sign to multiplication and multiply by the reciprocal of the divisor. To the right of this is the divisor. This is the dividend. So let's change it to multiplication. We made different kinds of changes. We didn't bring down the problem as it is. In this situation, we had to do a division function. We changed purposely the division to multiplication, and we purposely turned that around. Alright, now we can just multiply. Remember, with multiplication, you multiply numerators and denominators. And can we simplify anything? No, we can't. So 7 times 3 is 21. 4 times 2 is 8, but we want to simplify the expression, so we want to make it into a mixed number. Quotient, there. Remainder goes as the numerator, and the divisor becomes the denominator. So 2 5/8 is then the answer to number 11. So we look across and we do our order of operations. Are there parentheses? Yes. So we work those first. Now to add 1/6 plus 1/3, you have to find a common denominator. So the first thing we do is look at the larger number, and we start with multiples. Find the multiples of the larger number. The first multiple of any number is 6 times 1 times itself. Then we ask, does 3 go into 6? It does. So the common denominator and the least common denominator then between 6 and 3 is 6. So that's a friendlier problem. So then when we change this expression so that we can add it, we don't have to change this fraction. It already has a 6 in the denominator. But we want to make this a 6, so we multiply by 2, which forces us to multiply the numerator by 2. It's like the dictator. And then we have, bring down your plus sign, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6. So now we have 1/6 plus 2/6 in our parentheses. So we apply our order of operations. We're still working in the parentheses. We've made this fraction into a fraction that we then can add 1/6 to. So we get 3/6, right? 1 plus 2 is 3. And the denominator doesn't change, it's addition. So let's bring down our other parts of the problem. And you know, when I'm writing this, I like to check back up at the top and make sure no changes have happened as I've gotten further down. And 28 fifths, yeah, and that's still correct. So now we look across again, and to make it clear, we started with this horizontal line of this first one. This is our second horizontal line, and this is our third horizontal line across. So we create these steps. That's the first, to the second, to the third. Now as we look across, we apply the order of operations. Are there parentheses? No. Are there exponents, square roots? No. Are there multiplication and division? Yes, there's multiplication. And we work them left to right. So we do the first one first. The first one we see first. So if we work this problem, we can't cross reduce, but we can reduce here. 3 into 3 is 1. 3 into 6 is 2. So it reduces to 1/2. So now when we are multiplying this overall thing to bring it down here, we don't have 5 times 3, but 5 times 1. So then we have 5, and then we have 7 times 2 over 14. Anything you can do to make your numbers smaller as you go is really ideal. And of course, we bring down the multiplication sign. What's nice here is you can cross-cancel on both places. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 5 once. 14 goes into 28 twice, 14 goes into 14 once. So you have an answer. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1, which actually is the whole number of 2. So our answer to number 12 is the whole number 2. So let's work on problem 13. And we're going to do our usual. We look across this way as our first line. And do we have parentheses? Yes, we do. We have parentheses. We take 5/4 times itself 3 times, which means, let's put an arrow indicating what we're doing here. 5/4, we write it multiplied, the number is multiplied by itself 3 times. That's what's in the parentheses, essentially. And then bringing down this little thing, multiplication sign, in the middle of these parentheses, and this is 1/4 times itself like that, squared. Okay, so expanding what should be in the parentheses, then you work in the parentheses first, and we can do that at the same time, bringing down a multiplication sign. So 5 times 5 times 5. That's fun, isn't it? And there's no way to cross cancel to make it easier, because we looked at 5 times 5, which is 25, and then 25 times 5, which is 125. So let's do this one. 4 times 4 is 16, and then 16 times 4. Let's work that out up here. 6 times 4 is 24. Here, 4 times 1 is 1, plus 2, 6, 64. So that gives us a big old fraction, 125 over 64. And we're bringing down that multiplication sign. And now let's do what's in these parentheses, which is much easier. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 4 is 16. Line 3, so we look across, and what is order of operations? Well, there's only one thing left to do. So now we have to look at, can we cross cancel and make this less? We have 16 and we have 125. That's not a lot we can do with that. So we take 125 times 1. That's easy. So far so good. 125, and it's going to be over a large number, which is 64 times 16. 64 times 16 is 10, 1024. 125 over 1024. Looking at a few divisibility rules, this is not looking like it will reduce. If I look at the divisibility rule for 3, 1 plus 2 is 3 plus 5 is 8. It's not divisible by 3. It's not divisible by 9. It's not divisible by 4 because the last two numbers are 25. It is divisible by 5, but this is not. It's not divisible by 8 or 6. These are. This one is divisible by 8 and also by 6. So I'm guessing this 125 over 1024 is in fact reduced. It's as far as it'll go. So what we have then is 2 and 5/8 is an answer to 11. 2, the whole number 2, because we were down here, 2 over 1, is the answer to 12. And 125 10/24 is the answer to 13.